Today I'm going to show you my logo design process using nature as inspiration. So for this design, I'm going to be creating a fake company called Tiger Lily Clothing Co. Now, why did I pick such a long name? Because I want it to be obvious that this is not a real company. Most companies don't have long names like this, and yeah, anyways, it's a fake brand that I'm gonna be designing a logo for. So I have these pictures of tiger lilies. They actually will come into play here in a little bit. But when I was kind of coming up with a random idea, a random brief for myself, I had the idea of like a clothing company, and of course it's gonna be a little bit of a higher end clothing company. So then I thought, putting myself in the mind of someone creating this brand, what are the kind of words that they would want to use to describe themselves? And I thought of three of them, which is rejuvenate, growth, and longevity. So when people look at their brand, they're going to associate at least one of these ideas to the brand. I do encourage people that I work with to trim down these keywords into like down to one if possible. And I won't go into that part too much, but these are the three that I have. So if I can target at least one of these with this logo and with this brand, then that's going to be a great thing. So with this, the next step, once I kind of have an idea of, well, first of all, once I know the name of the company and kind of the mood that they want, the feeling, the idea that people want to associate with them, I move into a process where we come up with 3 to 5, ideally 5, brand nouns. Brand nouns are basically it's an approved list of observable, tangible nouns that I can use to represent the company in a logo. So these are what I came up with: a tiger lily, of course, a seed, the life cycle, or just cycles in general, meditation, so it'd be like somebody meditating, and rain. That could include a raindrop or rain falling, whatever. So obviously, the one that I decided to go with was a tiger lily, of course. Of course. So what I'm going to do now is kind of look at these references and build a bit of a logo here. So there's a couple of general ideas when you have these words like growth or rejuvenate, or same with things like connection or relationships. And it's this idea of chains, of these things locking together, interlocking chains. And that's how I always think about relationships or connection, is through chains or intertwining shapes. So anything that can intertwine, like an infinity symbol is kind of an intertwining shape. Something like a Venn diagram is a little bit of an intertwining shape. So things that cross over each other or connect to each other or that can reverse each other are intertwining, or kind of express this idea of connection or relationships. I know that kind of got cut out there, but kind of like that. That's a big old arrow. So anyways, with all of this in mind, this is a little bit of, groundwork as we get into the sketching phase. And I already know what the logo is, so I can blow past this like a lot faster than normal. But with that in mind, let's look at these references. I know that I'm choosing the tiger lily as my brand noun. So I'm going to kind of draw over these and see what we can observe here. So the thing that's unique about a tiger lily is that the petals, they curve backwards, and then these, I don't know what these are called actually, but they're like, I don't want to call them antennas, but they're kind of like antennas, from the core of the flower. They spew out, and so you kind of get this like almost jellyfish looking thing, to be honest. It's a jellyfish looking flower. And then of course tiger lilies have all of these spots and everything like that. So with those in mind, we have the curling petals and then these things sticking out. That's the most identifiable characteristics of a tiger lily. So I'm going to build off of that to create this concept. And of course the flower links to the stem as well. So we're just gonna sketch over this. I'm literally gonna draw over these references and see what we get. Because here there's a curved flower there. We can come from the stem on out and then around like this, and then represent another one on the other side like that. Okay, I don't like that. It could cross over itself with, again, that idea of connection. So what, in the early stages, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, I'm sketching as many ideas as possible. I'm taking a look at all of these shapes and I'm saying, do any of these look good as a logo? Because a logo is going to be one identifiable simple shape, and that's what I'm trying to find in all of these references. And so far what I'm coming across is using either the stem or these, I'm just gonna call them antennas. Hold on. Okay, it was bothering me. I had to look it up. It's called a stamen. The things that stick out are stamens. And also the tiger lilies represent wealth, prosperity, confidence, and pride. Which is great because as a company, we want people to feel confident and proud to wear our clothing. So anyway, continuing on. We have the curved petal and then we have the stamens coming out. So we can build off of that. So what I'm going to do is delete most of my lines that I've drawn here. And I'm just going to try and draw something that's a little more solid that would work here. And this type of a shape actually works. And this is repeated throughout all of these tiger lilies here. We have this here that's curving out and comes down. So they kind of have like a 9. They kind of look like 9s almost. Now, some people might wonder why I'm not using a grid. Why aren't I designing or drawing to a grid? And to that, it's like, grids are great. I use grids all the time, but they're not for every single logo ever. And grids are more for, I would say, things that are meant to feel more structured or rigid. Nature is pretty unstructured. It's a lot more free flowing and raw and unkempt. Like, we have to tame nature. And so I want to reflect that in the logo by not using a grid. I don't think a grid has to be used for everything, even though some people like to use grids for everything. We want to keep this feeling natural and loose, and the best way to do that is by not using a grid. That's why I'm sketching and trying to figure this out. And a ton of logos that you love are not designed to a grid, so it's not that big a deal. Anyways, we have this here that we're sketching out, and honestly, I'm seeing this shape everywhere. So with a couple of iterations, eventually I decided to come to a shape where instead of the stamens coming down like this, it kind of wraps around the petal like that. And eventually we get something that looks like this. So you can see where I took a little bit of liberty in the design, but also where the inspiration comes from, where you have the petal and then the stamen that comes down, except I just wrapped it around even more like that. And then remember over here, I was saying the connection relationships, or in other words, maybe like growth or rejuvenation. One of the nouns that we have is cycles, so all of these things kind of just become interrelated. If I take this and I put it upright and I duplicate one, flip it completely around and set it next to it, that makes a pretty interesting logo mark. And then I will balance this and I'll tweak it to try and make it look right, because this you know, the spacing and the balancing doesn't quite fit, so I would probably like flip this and that. And I'll just kind of work on this until I find something that I like, which I've actually already done, and it's right here. So this was the logo that I ended up coming up with for Tiger Lily Clothing Co. And you can see how I took inspiration from nature. I didn't use a grid. I didn't use any crazy fancy techniques. I literally just looked at nature for inspiration, and I drew off of that, and I iterated and designed off of what we see in the real world. And when you have something tangible like this, I feel like it just gives a different element to the design. It makes the design feel like it's based off of something. It's not arbitrary, which is important to me, is not to have things be arbitrary. And this is the logo that I have come up with. And so anyways, that's kind of a high level, super basic overview of how I created the logo and the thinking that goes into it. So hope that was useful to somebody. I'm out of here. Peace out.